The 7th of September, 1945, 08:03 hours. Yokosuka Airfield, south of Tokyo. The morning fog is thin and pale. Two Japanese mechanics jog across the cracked runway as a faint hum grows in the sky. It is not the familiar buzz of a propeller. It is sharper, faster, colder. A group of former Imperial Navy pilots, now ordered to stand down, turn their heads. They know the sound of every Allied aircraft that ever hunted them. This one is different. The vibration runs through the concrete. It rises, then falls, like a knife slicing the air. A silver shape bursts through the low clouds. No spinning propeller. Only a pointed nose and a steady plume of exhaust. The American jet slashes across the airfield at more than 500 miles per hour. The pilots on the ground freeze. Some raise their hands to shield their eyes. The jet rolls once, clean and smooth, and climbs away with a speed they never imagined possible. A former Zero pilot mutters, "So this is the future." Behind him, the others stay silent. The war has ended, yet this moment feels like the start of something far larger than any battle they fought. If you want more stories like this, make sure to subscribe, like, and share. The sudden appearance of American jets over Japan did not happen overnight. The route stretched back to the late 1930s, when engineers in Germany and Britain began experimenting with axial and centrifugal flow engines. The United States watched these developments closely. By 1941, American designers realized that piston engines had reached their practical limits. Fighters like the P-40 and P-51 were fast, but the need for even greater speed and climb pushed engineers toward a new power source. The Bell Aircraft Corporation took an early lead. Their team created the XP-59A Aerocomet, America's first jet fighter. It used General Electric IA turbojets, each producing about 1,250 pounds of thrust. The aircraft reached speeds above 400 miles per hour during tests at Muroc Army Airfield. Although the XP-59A lacked the maneuverability and firepower needed for frontline combat, its flights taught engineers how jets behaved, how they consumed fuel, and how they responded at high speeds. The Lockheed Aircraft Company went further. Under the direction of Clarence Kelly Johnson, a small team at the secretive Skunk Works facility designed a fighter that could exceed 500 miles per hour. The result was the P-80 Shooting Star. It used a single de Havilland Goblin turbojet, later replaced by the more powerful Allison J-33. The aircraft carried 6.50 caliber machine guns and could operate above 40,000 feet. Its straight, thin wings and simple fuselage were optimized for speed and stability. By mid-1944, prototypes were already flying test missions. The United States Army Air Forces wanted a weapon that could outpace any German or Japanese fighter. The jet age promised that advantage. The first American jet programs faced constant problems. Engines overheated, bearings failed, compressors stalled without warning. Pilots complained that throttle control was sluggish during takeoff and landing. One early report noted, "Response at low speed is dangerously slow. A poorly timed adjustment can lead to loss of lift." The XP-59A struggled to outperform the piston fighters it was meant to replace. In 1943 alone, 3 prototypes suffered major failures that grounded them for months. There were training issues as well. Pilots transitioning from propeller aircraft found the jet's acceleration unpredictable. They logged more than 75 hours in ground simulators and tow planes before making their first jet flight. Even then, landing accidents occurred frequently. The jet required long runways and careful speed management. Enemy analysts initially dismissed American jets. Japanese intelligence reports in early 1944 described them as experimental machines with limited combat value. German pilots who heard rumors of the P-80 called it a fast toy. Inside the United States, some commanders believed the new fighters would be too complex for wartime production. Fuel consumption added another challenge. The early J-33 engines burned through kerosene at a rate that shortened operational range. Engineers needed months to improve efficiency. Maintenance crews worked long hours under strict procedures to keep engines from failing during high-speed climbs. The jet age was approaching, but few understood how to use these machines properly. Not yet. By late 1944, test pilots discovered that jets offered two unmatched advantages. First, raw speed. The P-80 could reach more than 540 miles per hour in level flight. Nothing in the Japanese inventory, from the agile A6M0 to the faster Ki-84 Hayate, could match that pace. Second, consistent performance. Unlike piston engines, which lost power at higher altitudes, jet engines maintained strong output above 30,000 feet. Pilots also learned that the Shooting Star held energy well in fast dives. It avoided the compressibility problems that plagued many propeller fighters. The aircraft's 6.50 caliber guns gave reliable firepower. Tests showed they could place concentrated bursts at distances where Japanese fighters struggled to respond. The P-80's rate of climb reached more than 4,500 feet per minute. Its turn radius at high speed was wide, but pilots adapted. They used slashing attacks instead of tight dogfights. Training squadrons practiced fast passes, hit-and-run strikes, and vertical maneuvers. These tactics emphasized the jet's strengths and minimized its weaknesses. Ground crews improved turnaround times. They learned how to replace J-33 components quickly and monitor temperature limits during warm-up. With each month, the jet became less mysterious and more reliable. American commanders began planning operational deployments in the Pacific. The Japanese Air Forces, exhausted by years of loss, weren't prepared for this shift. The war in the Pacific was nearing its end, yet a few powerful encounters showed how dramatic the arrival of jet aircraft truly was. Encounter 1, Okinawa, July 1945. The United States deployed a small evaluation unit of P-80s to Okinawa. The goal was not major combat. Instead, it was to test performance in tropical conditions. 3 jets from the 412th Fighter Group rotated through patrol missions above the fleet anchorages. On the 28th of July, the P-80s climbed to 25,000 feet during a reconnaissance escort. Below them, radar picked up a lone Japanese Ki-84 trying to intercept a photo aircraft. Lieutenant James McRae closed the distance in seconds. The Ki-84 pilot, unaware of jets in the area, turned sharply left. McRae fired a short burst. "I saw pieces come off the tail," he later wrote. The Japanese pilot tried to dive away, but the P-80 stayed on him with constant speed. Moments later, the Ki-84 struck the water. This engagement marked one of the first air-to-air victories by an American jet in the Pacific. Encounter 2, Japan Home Islands, August 1945. As American bombers increased their pressure on the Japanese mainland, several P-80s were brought to forward bases to protect high-altitude reconnaissance missions. On the 8th of August, two Shooting Stars escorted a B-29 from a distance off Honshu. Strong winds from the west created heavy turbulence of 32,000 feet. Ice formed on the jet canopies, forcing pilots to adjust altitude. Near Aomori, Japanese radar operators detected the bomber. They scrambled for Ki-61 Hine fighters. The Japanese pilots ascended slowly. They expected to engage a bomber, not two jets. Captain Robert Forster saw the Ki-61s first. He radioed to contacts, "Low, closing." The P-80s dropped into a fast intercept. The Japanese fighters spread into a loose diamond, trying to force a climb. Forster passed above them at nearly 480 miles per hour. He fired at the lead aircraft. The burst shattered the canopy. One Japanese pilot shouted to his wingman, "They have no propellers." The surviving 3 fighters broke off. They could not match the jet speed. The B-29 reached safety. Encounter 3, Yokosuka demonstration flight. September 1945. After Japan's surrender, American forces entered the country. A small group of P-80s arrived with occupation units. Though no combat occurred, the dramatic demonstration flights over major airfields shocked Japanese personnel. On the 7th of September, a single P-80 flew low over Yokosuka. Former naval aviators watched as the jet accelerated along the shoreline. The pilot executed a climb that lifted the aircraft from sea level to 20,000 feet in under 5 minutes. For Japanese observers who fought the air war with lightweight, propeller-driven machines, this display was difficult to accept. Many had trained on aircraft with top speeds under 350 miles per hour. The shooting star speed, climb, and stability appeared almost unnatural when compared to their wartime experience. One former instructor quietly said, "Even if we had fuel and pilots, we had nothing that could stop that." These encounters, both combat and post-war demonstration, marked the end of one era and the beginning of another. The Pacific skies that once echoed with the slow spin of props now carried the hard burn of jet exhaust. American jet development reflected the industrial scale of the United States. By mid-1945, more than 1,500 J-33 engines had been produced. Lockheed built aircraft at a rate of nearly 4 per day during peak output. Training centers logged thousands of jet flight hours in the final year of the war. Fuel consumption remained high, yet American logistics convoys ensured steady supply. Japan could not match this pace. Their oil reserves were nearly gone. Their factories suffered from repeated bombing. Even advanced designs like the Kika jet struggled to leave the prototype stage. American jets did not dominate through numbers alone. They represented a new doctrine that mixed high speed, altitude, and firepower. In contrast, Japan's air forces relied on lightly built fighters that were suited for earlier stages of the war. If the conflict had continued into late 1945 or 1946, the United States planned to deploy more than 500 P-80s to the Pacific. Combined with long-range radar and bomber escorts, these jets would have shaped every major operation. The industrial momentum behind them was unmistakable. Enemy air crews reacted strongly when they learned of American jets. Japanese pilots who heard radio reports called them silent arrows. Many believed they were impossible to fight. One pilot wrote, "If it appears above you, you will never catch it." Ground soldiers also felt the change. They were used to hearing long approach noises from propeller planes. Jets arrived with little warning. Morale dropped quickly in some squadrons. Training units reported that new pilots showed hesitation during high-altitude drills. They feared weapons they had never seen and could not fully understand. Rumors spread that the jet could fly twice as fast as any Japanese fighter. Crew chiefs joked sourly that even if they shot at it, the bullets would never reach. The psychological effect lasted beyond surrender. Many Japanese veterans later said the arrival of American jets convinced them that further resistance was useless. They felt the sky itself had shifted in favor of a new technology. As production continued, the P-80 received upgrades that improved reliability and combat performance. Later versions used the J-33A35 engine, which produced more than 5,000 pounds of thrust with water injection. Engineers strengthened the wings to handle higher G loads. New gunsight systems improved accuracy during high-speed passes. The P-80B added better cockpit armor and upgraded electrical systems. The P-80C increased fuel capacity with wingtip tanks that extended range beyond 1,000 miles. This allowed longer patrols and made the jet more flexible in the Pacific. Tactical training evolved as well. Pilots learned to avoid tight turns and instead rely on speed control and altitude advantage. Instructors taught energy management and vertical combat moves. Jet operations shifted toward fast interceptions, escort duties, and reconnaissance support. By 1946, the aircraft stood as a refined platform that blended speed, power, and stability. It set the pattern for a future fighters that dominated the early Cold War. The first appearance of American jets over Japan signaled the end of one chapter in aviation history. The P-80 flew more than 12,000 sorties in its early service life and paved the way for later fighters like the F-86 Sabre. It achieved several aerial victories, though the war ended before it could be deployed in large numbers. Losses were low compared to piston fighters. Training accidents occurred, but combat losses were rare. The jet changed expectations for speed and altitude performance. It forced every major nation to re-evaluate aircraft design, tactics, and industrial planning. A former Japanese pilot summed up the experience years later. "When I saw the American jet, I knew our world was finished. It moved like nothing we knew. We had fought as hard as we could, but this machine showed us how far the war had passed us." The arrival of the American jet marked the moment when aviation stepped into a new era of speed and power.